Welcome to Classic Mistake, the podcast that celebrates classical music fails. I am the host of today's episode, Sara Hahn-Scinocco, and I am thrilled to introduce today's guests, Donovan Seidle and Marcin Swoboda. I'm sure I said it wrong. I really tried, Marcin. Both Dono and Marcin are colleagues of mine in the Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra. Donovan is the assistant concert master on violin, and Marcin is the assistant principal viola. They're also both incredible chamber musicians, soloists, composers, arrangers, and genuinely just awesome people. I'll put links to their websites in the show notes so you can learn all about them and their amazing careers.
It happened last year. And so we were putting together this wedding gig quartet thing. I have to tell the full backstory because it's like part of the awkwardness.
Okay.
So we do the wedding show where you go and you have a booth. Okay. And you hand out business cards and shit and network. So we're networking and doing our thing, playing our string quartet, and then these electric violin cello duos start blasting. There's a fashion show. These electric violin cello duos just blasting incredibly loud, hurt your ears loud. People are super into it. Fashion show's going on. They're really into it. Whatever. We're fuck those guys, because they're the only other string players at this thing. They're our competition. But anyways, whatever. Several months later, this guy contacts me and tells me that he loved our music at this bridal show, and he's doing a fashion. He is the director of Calgary International Fashion Arts Week. He was very, very nice. And he was very effusive about how much he loved our artistry. And he wanted us to play before the fashion show that he was putting on in the hotel across from the airport. So yeah, whatever, great, sounds awesome. Do the, negotiate a fee. And then he says, and I want a violinist to walk the aisle during the fashion show.
Okay.
And play pop music, Justin Bieber or Taylor Swift or whatever. And I'm all right, whatever. It'll be $800, please, or whatever it was. And he was totally fine with it. So
Were you
I'm committed. Yes.
Okay.
Because there was work.
Didn't just pawn it off on somebody.
That's the thing. Well, so this is the thing. We were the orchestra was working, nobody else was available.
It's free. Okay.
The only, so I was the only violinist of the group that could stay. But whatever. And so I get to the, dress rehearsal or whatever. I don't know what they call it in the fashion industry. And we just test out the mics and everything, sound check. Everything's working totally fine. I sound fucking amazing, honestly. Playing Justin Bieber. And Bob's your uncle. Everyone, all these people coming up to me oh, that's fucking awesome. You're so awesome.
Okay.
They're so into it. And I have to say, I had to actually kind of bust my ass, learning these songs by heart, because I'm walking the fucking aisle. Yeah. So anyways, after the sound check, this director guy comes up to me and he's like, that was so amazing. You're going to be a part of the show. I'm going to save a nice suit for you. You're going to, I'm not doing this accent. I'm doing an accent.
I mean, this sounds like an awesome gig. I don't know.
It was all, yeah. And I'm all right, fine. That's cool. I'm going to be a fashion guy. Yeah. But anyways, turns out this guy just says things. And constantly changing his mind. Okay. And so from that point forward, for the next 24 hours, I would get messages every hour, being now this the order is different. You're gonna go on first, such and such, whatever. So a day worth of emails, and then we show up. We do the pre gig music. It's fine, whatever. People are filtering in and out. And then quartet leaves. I rented a pickup from Long and McQuaid and a little transceiver or transponder, wireless. The only place I can hang out is the changing room with all these models So that was already like, oh my God, like this is
Awkward.
fucking crazy. Yeah. It's a bunch of naked people running, like sexy naked people running around. And I got a little like case of the nerves. And then this guy comes up and so like, oh yeah. So then just his lackeys keep coming up to me like, okay, so there's a bit of a change. Now we're going to do an hour fashion show and you're going to be in the break. You'll just walk around. Okay, fine. And then like 15 minutes later, the actual guy comes up to me and he's like, okay, you're the main part of the show. We're going to finish the whole show with you. You're going to walk and do 3 songs. And I'm like, okay, sure, like whatever you need from me. And so I'm like, okay, fine. Like from like standing around, like waiting nervously to be the intermission, I'm like, okay, I can relax. Like it's fine. And then like 20 minutes later, someone's like, what's going on? You're on next. Go, you play now. So anyway, fine, whatever, it's fine. So they put on the song, whatever it was, and like, bumping track, because I'm playing obviously to a fucking karaoke thing.
Okay.
And so I start doing my thing, and the fucking transponder thing is like just cutting in and out. Nobody can hear anything. It goes complete garbled garbage. So they're like, the sound guy's like, come closer, the fucking thing's not picking up. So I'm like walking to the corner of the runway and just kind of trying to be as close to the thing. And so everyone's just like, staring awkwardly. And there's no way to figure this out. And so anyways, this keeps happening. Like the guy comes back and says, okay, thank you, that's great. Like, you're not on for another hour or whatever.
Yeah.
And then minutes later, another lackey comes like, you! Go on! And then again, this fucking thing's cutting out. I'm like, are you sure you want me to do this? Because, like, clearly something's not working. So, anyways, the whole thing was a complete gong show. He was very gracious, to his credit, and was like, it's great, like, thank you so much. Right. Like, he was very understanding. And in the end it was fine. Paid me my money, which is the most important. No, I'm joking. But so then I go to the fucking Long and McQuaid the next day. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with your shit here, guy, but like, this is not a useful device. Like I was like, oh man, they gave you this? Like this is so old. Like your problem is that it's 2.4 gigahertz. Like that's like all of Wi-Fi is on that. So like the moment you get like 5 people in a room with a telephone, it's gonna cut out. And there's like 300 people in there, right? So they gave me my $17 back for renting it. But I'm like, okay, what do I do with the next 3 sleepless nights of just like cringe fucking cold sweats being like, oh my God, reliving this terrible artistic experience. It was real bad.
I keep thinking about the pranks we used to sort of pull in the orchestra, and Megan is a mutual friend of all of ours, and she was really, really into The Office. And there's a scene in, I forget which season of The Office, but where what's his name encases Dwight's stapler in green Jell-O, and it just looked great, and it was a hilarious idea. So I decided I'd play a prank on Megan, and so I snuck around backstage. I found her cake of rosin, and you use rosin to, on your bow. And I was nice. I took the rosin out of its case, and so I was only encasing the case in Jell-O, so that the actual rosin wasn't damaged or anything. So next day we get to rehearsal, and I've spent the previous evening trying to do this 3 or 4 times, because for that amount of Jell-O, like, you need a lot of gelatin. It was a real commitment, and so I would let it set, and then I'd try and upend it upside down so I could remove the mold and all that, and immediately it would just like disintegrate into a big pile of mush. And finally I got the good I added so much gelatin, it was really encased in there. It was very, very solid. And I set the green Jello mold with the rosin inside on her chair, and she came out before rehearsal and bust a gut, and it was great. But I remember some of the other pranks that sort of went wrong. So I remember a member of your section, Marcin, that used to go through other people's music and use whiteouts or these little whiteout strips to like take out accidentals. Right? You know who it is. Yeah. They would go through other people's music and white out the accidentals so that people just make awful clangers. And these were in the Roberto years, where if you made a big clanger, like, he would be down your throat.
Death stare coming in.
And you could always look back at this person and they'd be just giggling into their own stomach, like, the whole time. They were just waiting for it to happen, and when it happened...
I'm sad that doesn't happen.
I'm sad that doesn't happen too. It's pretty great. And they looked really convincing too. Like, you couldn't tell that there was ever an accidental there.
Yeah, that's some dedication, to the prank too.
Yeah.
I remember my first year here playing Nutcracker. I think it was Nutcracker. Maybe it was Swan Lake or something. And I was sitting principal, and we get to some quiet part. Maybe it was a viola solo, and I just hear farts.
That was gonna be my next one.
So somebody in this room,
yeah, it was me,
hid a fucking fart machine in the wall next to me in the pit.
Okay,
it was funny.
The gigantic fail for that whole prank was that the remote control stopped working, but it kept farting.
I didn't know that. That's so good.
You couldn't even time it. It was
like indiscriminately.
It would just randomly fart.
That's
amazing.
It was
at least
great.
6 different fart sounds, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
I for some reason I was recently talking to another one of our colleagues about that moment, and he shared with me that you actually got reprimanded or maybe you didn't, but the conductor got real pissed.
Yeah, someone got really pissed.
Yeah, because it got a bit out of control. And then we're all laughing because you can't focus.
It's really hard to play when you're laughing. Speaking of farts.
On the topic of farting.
I remember, I think it was either a Roberto concert or a Hans Graf concert, but CBC was picking up the recording. And so, they bring in a big truck and they park it in the loading dock. They load in all their equipment and they're set to record the whole orchestra. And for this particular performance, and I forget if it was Hans Graf or if it was Roberto. I think it was Roberto. We were doing this Wagner overture to Lohengrin or something. And just wonderful, beautiful overture. And halfway through the first page is like this really like gorgeous soft moment, and from behind my head, so I sit close to the conductor. The back of my head is stage right, and so behind my head and up a bit, I can tell that it's like up in not the second balcony but the first balcony. I hear this like long, like whiny fart.
Amazing.
That I know that CBC has picked up. I still have not found the recording.
Good.
But they've got it somewhere. And it is very audible. And it's very long.
So amazing.
It's really good.
Did they just never air it because
I don't
of the
think they ever aired it.
ruined the entire piece. We can't use this.
Maybe now with AI being what it is, they can like filter it out. They can have.
I think it's gonna take like
fart
a
band pass
FOIP
filter.
request or something to get the recording from them.
Can you imagine them like listening to it back? Like, okay, we're gonna edit this.
Freedom of information. It's amazing. Yes.
What,
Worth it.
What is that? It's in the left channel. Can you isolate that?
Goldberg variations, yes, for quartet.
For quartet.
And so it's like a bunch of
yes.
variations. So like they asked us to do it, and there was a whole rigmarole. It's like, okay, like this is a kind of a big deal. We need to negotiate a solo fee. So there was lots of back and forth with management.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how important it is and like how we have to put in a bunch of extra work. Uh-oh. Yeah. Fucking bad, man. And we did. Like, it's not like we didn't. Yeah. But anyway, you know, like during the rehearsals, I mean, there was no reason for a conductor to be involved because it was a string quartet, or maybe there was a bass as well, actually. But there was no reason for a conductor, but he or she insinuated themselves into the situation, and there was a conductor, despite our best efforts to dissuade the idea. But there were certain movements that the conductor agreed not to conduct.
Okay.
And we were just going to do on our own, because that was going to be easier. And the conductor neglected to abide by those.
Oh no.
Yes. Yeah. And so in the performance,
that can really screw you up.
It really screwed us up because everyone's like, what the heck? First of all, like, what's going on? Yeah. And like, I guess we're starting now. And so there was several
attempts.
So like the conductor, and so this particular conductor has a very florid style, let's say. So there's lots of movement in the hands. And so it was very difficult to tell what kind of subdivision he or she was thinking of. And I think it was slow movements. I think it was predominantly slow movements.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so we started one of them, and like the cellist comes in double time.
Yeah.
And the rest of us are like, oh god. And the conductor stops and like says like, oh, like this is live performance or whatever.
This sort of thing happens.
Yeah. Except for fucking happened again immediately.
Oh, that's awful.
And my fucking heart just shriveled into like a date-like mass.
Yeah.
It was so brutal. And then it happened again in the later on in the performance. And so one of our colleagues who was playing first violin at the time also said this, and that's exactly how I feel. He or she said, I've never been so embarrassed in my life. Like in my entire professional career, I'm like right there with you. Like that was the fucking worst. But it was real bad because we had gone through that whole rigmarole of like explaining to them how important it was for us to be paid for our work, and then we just go and shit the fucking bed.
It's so not your fault though.
It was,
and it's so awkward for the audience, I'm sure too.
It was
right?
very. It was. You could feel the fucking tension. Yeah. It was so brutal. I had a pretty good. It wasn't a train wreck, but today we played this concert, and it was like a fairly difficult piece of new music. Very aggressive and like driving rhythm, Canadian music style. But there was a really funny moment where like we'd rehearsed the shit out of this one spot because it was pretty exposed if you fuck it up. It's like and or whatever, but before that it's like very, very confusing before that. And 3 of us nailed it. But the second violinist just comes in, and just like right in the middle. It's very, very obvious, even to the like most amateur listener. Is like, yeah, that guy fucking stepped in it. And the thing, you can just hear like grinding, especially with this violin. You grind to a halt, like, nope, this is the
abort. abort.
Yeah. No faking your way through that, but it was pretty funny. But I mean, again, like that, probably nobody, if they noticed it, nobody remembered it by the end of the performance. You know, like it's not a big deal, but it does feel, when you do it, it feels like a big deal.
It feels horrible.
Yeah.
My whole body goes numb sometimes. Just...
Yeah.
Like, what?
I get like the hot flash.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Like,
just
you
like
can feel this like awful blush. Just
yes.
like
But it, all over. Like
all over.
Yeah. And then the cold after. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
This cold sweat in the night, and it's I relive it for sometimes for many nights afterwards.
Shame.
It's real. It's real bad.
Yeah.
A story about a Christmas special for a crooner who makes part of his living right now hawking sparkling water.
Okay.
Okay. So it was a video recording. It was like a video Christmas special, and you know they had guest artists. I forget who the guest artists were this time. I think it was Mariah Carey and a few others. You know, Sesame Street puppets and that sort of thing. It was amazing.
That sounds pretty sweet, actually.
Yeah.
It was great, and a whole big band and a whole string section behind them. And they sort of neglected to tell us that at the finale of the show, they would be dropping fake snow on us. And this wasn't like confetti snow. This was like foam.
Oh, no.
Right? So, like, if you watch that Christmas special, you're going to see the entire string section bail and either like jump off stage or like stick their instruments into their tuxedos or down their pants or up their dress or something to protect them, because we weren't told.
Was it live?
No, well, they only had time for that one take because like Miss Carey wouldn't come out.
Right. So, like,
And so they were paying like triple overtime, and it was like we had one shot at it. Let's do it.
That's crazy.
Foam.
That's an oversight.
It was real bad.
Holy shit.
I've worked for a long time with another composer arranger, and he brings me on to lots of great projects, and you know I thank him from the bottom of my heart for that. Dave Pierce is just awesome, and he's so creative, and we've worked the Olympics together, we've done the Expo in Dubai together, and so many things in between. He has this habit of pulling me up to the conductor's podium. So the first time this happened was I was in the CPO. I was sitting concertmaster, and it was during the Queen's visit to Calgary. And so we're playing for the Queen for their visit, and there's a whole like stage production. The Young Canadians are out front and doing their song and dance, and we're playing a piece that Dave wrote. And at near the end of the piece, he's sort of gets a look in his eye, and he's looking over at me, and it's like, I'm sitting concertmaster. You try and be aware of what your conductor is doing, and he's like signaling for me to talk to him, right? So the piece ends, and people are applauding, and I go up to the podium and see what's what. He was like, I'm going to go meet the Queen. Can you conduct the encore?
Amazing.
so unfair.
It's so unfair because I had like zero preparation. So I grabbed the practice part off my stand, and all of a sudden I'm standing in front of the CPO, and I'm conducting a march or something.
Crazy.
From a practice violin part.
You know, that's you know, out of the range of my abilities. I'm not used to conducting. I'm not trained in that. And, you know, I'd forgive him that oversight if he hadn't done it 2 other times. So during the Olympic recording sessions, I'd written some stuff, and going into the recording sessions, you expect to be behind the console and giving notes and all that. And Dave hands me the baton and he's like, this piece better than anybody, so up you go. So there I am conducting in the recording session. It went well, but I was not wearing the pants for it. I had some nice shorts on, and everyone's at knee level to you, so it was kind of weird. The third time is actually during the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, and you can see this if you go back and look at any of the recordings. Near the end, there's a very, very long sort of vamp that happens. And I actually forget how this happens. It was at the end of the parade, the athletes' parade, and Dave needed to get from the stadium down to BC Place for some sort of reception. And again, he's just like, he looks over at me, is like, hey, come here. And he hands me the baton and is like, conduct to the end. So I start conducting, and parades, especially in these sorts of ceremonies, are really open-ended. So you can loop back a long distance and have a lot of room to play. There's also an emergency phone by the podium for events like this, just so like people know what's going on. I didn't have a headset, but I had a phone. So I start conducting, and we go through once, we go through twice, we go 3 times. I pick up the phone and it's like, hey, what's going on? What's happening while I'm conducting? And we must have gone around 10 times that whole section before we were allowed to move on, before we got the signal to move on. But yeah, it was very, very stressful.
Did you have like a heart attack?
Yeah.
I almost did. I mean, you're turning back like 30 pages in the score, going again, and it keeps happening.
When I was a teenager, I think I was 15, it was like some music festival competition thing or whatever, and the stage was like a hollow, whatever, wooden box of some kind, but it was all like mic'd, and I was wearing, so my mom bought me these shoes in Poland with like wooden soles. They were really nice, like leather.
Okay.
They had like the sweet silver buckle, like it was real nice. But they were really like clompy, and they go katunk, 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 like heels, Yeah. And so I was like going up on stage to play, and it was like katunk, katunk, and so I was like trying to like gingerly walk, and that's fine. Whatever, I played, it was fine. There's no real thing except for that night at dinner. My mom's like, "Were you trying to walk gently? Because it sounded like you were wearing high heels." I'm like, "Yeah, Mom, I was. Thank you for calling attention to it, to my 15-year-old self. Now I feel even more embarrassed."
Yeah.
I remember rosining up my bow so hard in preparation for a master class because I was really nervous about the person I was, that was doing the master class. I kept rosining my bow, and I was convinced somehow, or I just lost track or something, but I kept rosining my bow, and it was my turn to play. I got up on stage. It was Bartok's Romanian dances, and I
it's a bad one to have
started out, and there's just this cloud of rosin around me, and I'm allergic to everything.
That's amazing.
So that sort of doubled the.
Yes.
So we stopped the master class.
Really?
Oh,
I had to
good.
clean my bow off, and I had to blow my nose, and
That's so amazing.
it was wonderful.
That's a fail for sure.
Come on. I remember discovering that I had a thigh tear in my tuxedo pants after the performance.
Which side?
Oh, it's
And
so-
On the audience side. So they were seeing a lot of thigh.
Amazing. They loved it, I bet. Stanford. We were in Stanford with the St. Lawrence String Quartet
Okay.
playing Bartok 6, and like starts with that fucking badass viola solo.
Yep.
And the tempo indication, or whatever the character indication, is Mesto.
Okay.
And fucking Jeff Nuttall, God rest his soul, or what, Creator rest his soul, or fucking Big Bang rest his soul, whatever. Again, Jeff Nuttall is my actual hero. I credit him for my love of chamber music. But he's like, Archie, what does Mesto mean? I'm like, Jeff, I don't know, buddy. Like, I'm here. I've been drunk for the past like 4 days, but like it was a very, very embarrassing moment.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm like, the music speaks for itself. Fuck off. with
Yeah.
your fucking Mesto. You know?
What does Mesto mean?
Sad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I did do a concert in the park at the end of the pandemic with Lolo.
Amazing.
Duo Splendido. Calgary's premier viola duet.
Damn. Whoop whoop.
But like we just, neglected to do any taping of anything, like taping of the music, and like the slightest gust of wind, and the fucking music was all over the park, and so I literally spent half the set running around,
Chasing around the park.
collecting, and it was really hot, so I think I was also in shorts. Actually, it was also very embarrassing, and so after that, I liquid glued or spray glued our music to plywood. Because I put in new windows in my garage and I cut out the plywood
Yep.
walls because our garage is walled with plywood. And the
Bit impractical.
cuts of the plywood from the windows are the backing of. It's very impractical, but I'll tell you what, not gonna get blown away by the wind.
Yes. Very good.
And we took those on the road.
Building
we took
some
those
muscle when
up
you
to
do
Red Deer.
page turns.
No, there's no page turns.
Okay.
It's like
It's just
6
like
pages.
It's a long piece
the thing,
of
it's
plywood.
4
You
feet
just
long.
walk down the...
We set up
walk down
2
the
stands and we put the plywood on 2
wow.
stands.
That's awesome.
Good.
And at these, like the Health Arts Society
Yep.
of Alberta. Shameless plug for Health Arts Society
Yes,
of Alberta.
they're wonderful.
Concerts in care. But we would just take our plywood pieces.
You really did.
Yes. And I would always make it part of the shtick, being like, here's why
Yeah.
we have our music taped to plywood. And the people, they loved that story. They loved the image
got to live a
of us
day.
running around in a field in front of 500 people probably,
Oh, wow.
picking up loose leaf pieces of paper with their music on it. So good.
I remember back when I was young, when the Kiwanis Festival was still the Kiwanis Festival here in Calgary. It was an annual thing. Every student did it. They competed in 3 or 4 classes, and I had this habit when I was performing because I got really nervous when I would perform. I would just shut my eyes and I would pretend I was just playing for myself, and that worked for a while. And in one of these classes, I was concentrating very, very hard, and I was probably moving a little bit to the music. And when I opened my eyes at the end of the piece, I was facing the piano. So I had turned 180 degrees so that my back was to the audience, and I completed And I turned around and I bowed to the audience and to the adjudicators and slunk back to my seat.
That's real good. That's real good. And to this day, I have I can play stuff for memory in my house.
Yeah.
But the moment I'm performing for somebody, I have multiple voices in my head being like, "You're gonna fuck it up! You're gonna fuck it up! Is this where you're gonna fuck it up? Fuck it up!"
It's like 20 devils.
It's crazy. It's crazy, and it's very distracting.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you just get overwhelmed with this "oh God, I don't got it! I don't got it!" And then it's gone.
You can't enjoy it at all. It's not like the enjoyable performance, because the whole time you're just like, oh my God, what's the next note?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
What is it? Okay,
Yes.
that was great. Oh my God, what is it?
It feels like a nightmare.
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels like the nightmare where you get out on stage and you're like, I don't.
anything.
What? What am I playing?
We've all
I don't have anything prepared.
All had that nightmare.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I was a freelance violinist in Vancouver for many, many years. Played all the gigs. And every summer with the Vancouver Metropolitan Orchestra, we would play a huge concert down the waterfront in the summer. It was always historically a stupidly hot day. Everybody cooked and was miserable, and we played, all the same repertoire, usually, all the greatest hits.
Star Wars, Indiana Jones.
And always
1812
concluded with
Overture.
1812 Overture and all the cannons and shenanigans and all the goings on. So anyways, it was happening. We were playing it down. Everybody was hot and miserable, except the audience. The audience loved it. It was always thousands of people turned up. It was a free concert, so probably it was probably a fun thing if you weren't sitting under the tent.
It's funny. It's totally fun.
It was probably actually a good time if you weren't us. But so we're grinding our way through 1812, and it's starting to get to the ramping up bit, where there's the beautiful the hymn melody, and all of a sudden, so I'm playing and the first violin's right on the edge there, and this guy on rollerblades, and bright orange short shorts. Amazing. With feathers all the way down his arms, just glides out in front of the orchestra and stops right behind the conductor and starts going dun dun dun,
And raising
dun, his arms very theatrically, doing this interpretive dance
On
On
rollerblades,
rollerblades.
no less. And then he starts gliding back and forth. And then it took a couple moments, but then security, because we were like, what is this? That's kind of good. Is that in our show? He wasn't at sound check. Is this?
Who organized
who is this?
this?
This is amazing. And this is kind of the slow bit while we're the cellos are grinding away and the violins are just what's happening? And then so it took a few moments before the security realized that this was not supposed to be part of the show.
Amazing.
And it was one of those bad B-roll movies where the security guards are really chunky and really slow and really clumsy, and he's just gliding back and forth just beautifully, and they're trying to grab him.
He's evading them.
Yeah, he's evading them, and he just does a pirouette and spins away from them, and we're just this is meanwhile it's the cellos are still going, the longest cello section solo ever, and then it starts getting more exciting, ramping up towards the end, and this is still happening, and the audience is starting to scream and yell and cheer for him, and of course the conductor thinks it's because they love the music.
For him.
Yeah, and he's just really into it, and of course we're so distracted by this guy in short shorts just going, and his routine gets more and more elaborate, and he goes faster, and it's just what is happening, and the orchestra just starts to come apart, and it's my distinguished colleagues we're just all over the place, and the conductor, but he's still working it, conducting that 1812 that's happening in his mind and not in front of him.
Yeah.
I was very committed, and he's one of my colleagues, and my friend, and I love him. But he really works it. He works it.
Okay.
And finally we get to, at the end is just getting more and more like disastrous because like, of course the person who's been probably sitting there like the entire concert waiting to like press the button to like do the cannons was like missed their cue, and then was all of a sudden just like mashing down the keys. Like just like everything was just going, and like nobody was in the right, like it was just ridiculous, but it was still happening. And I was just like, I couldn't even play. I was losing it. And we finally get to the end. And Raymondo Chan, we didn't know what his name was at the time, he stands up right behind the conductor like this, and the crowd is like screaming. They just like can't even handle it. And of course the conductor turns around because he thinks those applause are for him, and he turns around, and then he's like, there's this half naked guy there like getting all like just soaking it all in. It was all for him.
Stolen valor.
And then of course like he was like, I think the conductor was probably super pissed, and anyways, and Raymondo Chan just glides off, and nobody could catch him, and we never saw him again. We were like, what just happened?
So
what just happened?
Fast forward 1 year or 2 years?
1 year.
1 year, and Janna's told me the story. I had taken a sabbatical, and I was living in Vancouver at the time, and so we both got the call for the same gig. And she told me the story about this amazing rollerblader that was in front of the orchestra the last time, and I wonder if it'll happen again. And we go through the whole set of music, and when we get to 1812, and I'm trying to be very focused, and like Janna, who is my stand partner, nudges me. It's like, it's happening again. And sure enough, at the side of the stage, we see this guy in spandex and 80s sunglasses and feathers and rollerblades and all neon. And he glides up.
Starts his routine. But this time, security was prepared.
They're quicker on their feet.
They were more equipped to handle, and unfortunately, it was cut short.
Yeah. But did they take him down or what?
They I didn't see him physically removed, but he was ushered off.
And but later, we were walking home, and we encountered him on the street. And we're like, dude, you are amazing.
We love your work.
He was like, my name is Raymondo.
And so we started following him on Instagram, and we've had a few conversations with him. Fast forward a couple years later.
5 years later.
And
we're in Dubai.
We are in Dubai, and we're working on the World Expo out there. And we see on Instagram that he's on a plane, on a private
jet flying
towards Dubai. And we're like, what are the odds? I wonder if we could ever possibly see him here.
But we didn't message him or anything. We were just, because we were working our asses off.
Yeah.
And anyways, we were just like, oh, that's weird. That's random. Yeah. How Raymondo Chan of him. Like.
And we're staying in sort of the artists' village or the presenters' village. They built a whole district for the expo, and so they had apartment buildings for anybody who was working on it. And outside of these apartment buildings were a number of food trucks that you could, get food 24 hours a day, and one of them was a little Tim Hortons.
But even before that,
in Dubai,
I'd walked out. It was the night.
That's right. I wasn't with you then.
Yeah, you weren't with me.
Yeah.
It was like a frantic day because it was the night of the dress rehearsal for the show that we were working on, and it had just come down from the Royal Emirati family that the show had to be totally reworked and redone. Yeah. So anyways, everything was frantic. It was a horrible day. We came home, had a few hours of sleep, and Dono left before me, and then, I had a shower, and I was, like, rushing to get there. I walk out of our apartment building, and Raymondo Chan's sitting right in front of our apartment. And there's like 20 of these apartment towers.
Yeah.
Like, they're all the same. And he was just sitting there, and I was like, Raymondo Chan. He was like, oh yeah, it's you. And he's like on the Expo campus. Like, you're not even really supposed to be there unless you work for Expo.
Yeah.
Or like, how did you even get here? And then he was like, oh yeah, I'm just here, just like living in Dubai and dancing.
And dancing, and I'm making a film.
I'm making a film. You want to be in my film? You should be in my film. And so, like, I was already late for rehearsal, but I had to do a dance with him for his film in Dubai, where you're not supposed to be dancing. Like, women and men are not supposed to dance. And there's
In
public, and there's cameras everywhere. And anyways, and so he was like, oh, that was very nice. That was very nice. Yeah, bye. I'll see you around. Blah, blah. And anyways, I like ran all the way, and I was like, no, I just saw Raymondo Chan. And he was like, what? Who's Raymondo Chan? I was like, the guy that was like...
Did you make the final cut of the film?
No, actually, I should mention him.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, we walk out after, like, it was another huge night of, like, stuff on the cutting room floor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and we were just totally wrecked. And there was this funny little Tim Hortons food truck. It was super random in Dubai, and it was
Seats
actually
in front of it.
the only place that had decent coffee on the whole Expo campus. And he was sitting there.
He was sitting there with his 80 sunglasses and so neon spandex.
Amazing.
And
This is a great story.
Yes, really is. And the funny thing is, he looked like surprisingly like our colleague Adam, who was there as a recording engineer. And so Adam gave him his Expo ID, and so he was gonna try and get in, and just because we had like all access VIP, and so like he probably did. He probably did. He probably got away with it.
probably used that.
Did you ever figure out what he was actually doing there? Was he literally just...
That's literally what he does.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do subscribe. And if you have any comments or questions, you can find us at www.gbflutes.com.
Check.
Check. 1, 2, 2.